Alright, so now that you have the walls all constructed, the next thing that we want to focus on is how you're going to stand them up and what's going to support them in the upright position. To do this, we usually make these jacks here. And typically what we do is once we stand the wall up, we set these jacks anywhere on the flat and just take like a drywall screw in through the jack into one of these 2-foot center 1x3s going all the way up, and you can put a screw or 2 screws in each one. That's normally what we do. For this certain project that we're working on, we wanted to make it to where there's going to be no tools required, so we're going to drill holes in each one of the jacks so that basically these bolts can go through, and then you just put on one of these wing nuts. Now the only problem is we need to add wood that's attached to the flat so that the bolt can go through the jack into the wood. These walls that we're working on are actually, they're 10 foot tall, but my jacks are only 8 feet tall, and it didn't need to go the full length. So whether you're making an 8-foot wall or a 10-foot wall, you know, your jack doesn't necessarily always have to go the full distance. Okay, so you can see I've taken the liberty to cut all my 1x3 that's going to be going up the flat. I've got to basically glue and shoot all these into position, and then I'll drill the holes, and this will be what the jack basically will go up against to hold the wall up. Now to do this, I'm going to use this clamp to hold it in position. Now if you don't have a staple gun, you can always pre-drill and then run some screws in all your sides, working your way up. For this though, since I do have a staple gun, I'm going to use a 7/16 crown staple that's about 1 3/4 inches long. So let me get some glue on here, all the way down. I'm going to put a couple staples down at the bottom, put one in the middle, and you can even do one on the top of this one, and one on the side if you want. We'll do our second one here. The first one I was able to get in from both ends, but as you work your way up, you're gonna not be able to get to the end of this one. So what I do is I usually go back with like a pin nail, and I just hit it right in there to connect that joint. But once the glue dries, it should be pretty good. So I'm just gonna continue and work my way right up. Alright, so now that I have all the boards all installed, before I send this bad boy over to my lovely wife to paint, I am going to drill the holes. Now what I've done is I've made a little story stick, and I've taken all my measurements and I've drilled all my holes. That way I can use this to drill all the holes for the backs here and for each one of the jacks. Now I've also drilled holes so that I can also use the same story stick for the side of each one of these flats, so that I can use that same bolt to hold all the walls together, and then all the holes will line up. So the first thing I do is I take this little story stick, make sure it's flush with the bottom, and then I'll clamp it into place, and just pre-drill each one of my jack holes. I've got 4 of them for this thing. I'm going to step up each one of these holes so that my holes are clean. And then the final hole for the bolt side. I go slightly larger so that the bolt slides in with no problems. While we're at it, we ought to just go ahead and drill the sides of the flat too, since I got everything out. Okay, so again, since I'm going to drill all the sides all the same, I want to make sure that I always go from the same place. For this particular one, I'm going to go from the bottom in the front face. So, take my little story stick, make sure it's flush with the bottom edge and flush with the face, and then clamp it into place. Now, just go down and make sure it's flush here the whole way down. Now I can get rid of my storage stick. Now we do the next step. And we do the final size. So now this thing's all done. All the holes should line up, and when we stand these up, we should be able to just slide the bolts right through and twist the wing nut. Just like the walls, when I make these jacks, I tend to always get in the habit of making the bottom board be the one that goes all the way across, as opposed to running this board all the way to the ground. That way, if this thing ever gets dragged around, it's less likely to get ripped apart. So basically it's just some 1x3s shot together. You have this corner brace in here to give it some support, and then you've got an angled brace that keeps this thing square. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is shoot the two longest boards together in an L shape. The idea is to overlap all your joints. So we get some glue on the edge of this guy here. In the past, we've made the bottoms of the support jacks 2 to 4 feet long, but for this one we chose to go 3 feet, just to save some space. But the thing to remember is the shorter that you go, the more weight you will need to hold the wall secure. If you're using the walls for something like a walk-through maze, you can also secure them using a 1x3 across the tops to connect them all together and hold them upright. For the corner piece, I just cut a 12-inch square of OSB, and then I cut the square in half at a 45-degree angle. When lining several flats in rows or stacking them on top of one another, it's a good idea to make straight support braces, often called whalers or hog's troughs. Much like the jacks, these 1x3 support beams will help the walls become more rigid and secure. Make sure that your support jack is square before you attach the last side of that angle brace.
These two-sided reusable sandbags are a great option for weighing down the support jacks. They have 2 zippers on each side to help prevent the sand from leaking, and they can hold around 20 to 25 pounds of sand each. Plan on each support jack needing 2 or more sandbags to be safe.